The Boys, Season 5, Episode 4, King of Hell. In this house, we believe in Homeland. Will, what are your thoughts about Homelander's endeavor to become God? I mean, no, to be the prophet. I mean, to be marketed as God.
Yeah, so I think overall, I mean, just hit sort of the overall thoughts on the episode itself. I mean, it was entertaining, but we're
I
halfway
didn't like
through.
this episode.
I was gonna say we're halfway through the final season, and I think this is the first misstep they've taken in its final season. I mean, like I said, was I entertained? Yes. Did it, like, advance the story in a significant way that didn't feel like it fell into TV tropes? Like, for example, the whole Starlight going off to meet her dad and close that piece, and all in the trope of the folks in Fort Harmony, and also and the TV trope of some MacGuffin that's going to cause us all to, like, tell the folks how we really feel. I mean, so it was a very familiar show. I did, but to your question about Homeland and his, now that he's seen the light and he wants the world to see him as the Messiah. It was what was more fascinating to me with that whole bit was really more of Firecracker's reactions to it, and how and the whole marketing thing than the Homeland piece of it. Because we all that aspect of him, being the Messiah and all that kind of stuff. It was the logical conclusion of where he was going in his craziness. But
Yeah,
how the people reacted to it, and them basically trying to market it, and again, this is how the show, really hits on the ratings, and, all the, media manipulation and all that kind of stuff. That to me was the piece of the episode that I really, really enjoyed.
as a whole, I'm just about this episode for a lot of the reasons that you did. Even with this Homelander God campaign. The only thing I really liked about this part of the episode was honestly the fact that they casted my girl from Jackie Ton from Nobody Wants This.
Yeah,
She needs to be in everything. I love her.
yeah,
She's so good, and I forgot that we saw her in Gen V until
yeah,
IMDb. So
yeah,
just when she came on the screen, I was like, "Hold up,
yeah, yeah. She's been
let
around for a
me."
while, not only Gen V, but she's also been around in some earlier seasons of The Boys as well. The assistant, yeah,
Yeah, she just comes out to play, and I like her. We we always seem to learn what we don't want to learn about Ashley, and it becomes more and more clearer she I like the line. She literally is a two-faced bitch.
yeah.
That's
You're
what she
really-
metamorphed into. That I thought that was so
yeah,
good.
that
Um,
and yeah. That
and
was the other thing I did like about the episode too. The one-liners whenever, like, with Starlight, not Starlight, when Firecracker Jump walked in, and after she and the
oh,
old
father.
father had sex, and it was and she was like, "Jesus, it smells like wet shit in a waffle." So they did have
Yeah.
some good one-liners.
Yeah, but I think overall, it kind of fell flat because based on everything that we've seen Homelander do this season in terms of Vought, we were already there. We're like, okay, so this isn't new, and I don't know, the reactions. I didn't even find interest in terms of the reactions, because at this point, I it's very clear after seasons of this show how anyone other than Homelander is going to react to something that he wants. And so I'm kind of desensitized even to that aspect of it. Like the in terms of Homelander, and then we bring in Soldier Boy because they end up going to Fort Harmony together, or meeting each other there. What I found most interesting was the line at the end, because you have Soldier Boy, who we're reminded is basically a nuclear bomb himself, and he kills this person who gave him who started his whole thing, and albeit started also Homelander's creation with V1, right? That was the person in the wall.
Oh, yeah, the vault for sure. But Quinn was Quinn was I don't know if he was the doctor. I thought Quinn was he was the person that Soldier Boy wanted to be as far as the first test case, and then
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
and
So, he kills Quinn, and then later we see Homelander break out of his own death trap that his father locked him into.
yeah,
And he finds Soldier Boy and just says, "Are you crying?"
yeah,
And in a very, very Homelander way, which I thought was a great read on that line. And then there's that moment where Soldier Boy's like, "Just do it.
yeah,
Just do it already." And then he doesn't. And why I think that's such an interesting moment is because and this is probably why this episode from, like, 99% of it, I was like, "Ugh, tropey," and everything that you were talking about before, was because we have a brief we ended on such a powerful moment
yeah,
with Homelander and Ryan in the previous episode.
mhm,
And then to cut to this episode and to open with Homelander being in denial, being in a different state about things, and that you're just like, "Well, wait, I wanna understand. I wanna delve into this psychology more." And I think they finally started to do that more at the end there with because you are dealing with Homelander not only working through issues with his father, but also now his son. And I think that's really interesting because at the end of the day, Homelander, as we noted last week, he didn't kill Ryan.
no,
He didn't. He beat the living shit out of him and didn't kill him. And then he Soldier Boy wanted it and he still refuses to kill his father. Like, we saw that in what, episode 2 when he first sends him to go
yeah,
and potentially get infected by the virus without
right,
telling him about it.
yeah,
Like, he knew it was a smart thing to do, but the realization didn't click until Sister Sage, I think, pointed out, like, "You literally sent your father
mhm,
to die."
did
And
yeah,
you see it. So it's very fascinating to me honestly, when Homelander because of these relationships, you do see that humanity. You do
yeah,
see that, no, he actually is a human because he does there's a reason why he has yet to, I can't say he can't, but he has yet to kill these people who are literally tied to him by blood.
yeah,
And the irony of it is, I think to an extent, they both feel the same exact way. Like, Ryan too wants to stop Homelander, but there's also hesitation not just because of his power ability, but also I think because at the end of the day, that's still your father. And it's just it's a mind game and it's a really interesting dynamic that I think got pushed to the side. And then I was like, okay, so we're gonna hear about everyone else. But yeah, did you have anything to
yeah. One of the things, couple things about Homelander as well, that whenever Soldier Boy pushed him into that vault and locked it, and seeing Homelander actually vulnerable. Because,
Mhm.
'cause at this juncture, there's really no one other than Soldier Boy that can really match him toe to toe as far as being a super being, even though it was kind of funny whenever with their back and forth, Soldier Boy would not let Homelander fly him there to the Fort Harmony, which I guess again, he's just like, I just don't trust you. But the other thing too is just how similar these two are. And I know last week we speculated about the relationship that Homelander and you clocked it about Liberty, Homelander, and Soldier Boy, and the little love triangle. Well, I won't say love. Well, yeah, I guess it's a triangle
they
between them.
all screwed each other.
They
They're
all screwed
related in more ways than one.
one, yeah, yeah, which is funny because that's a twist from the comic book, because I think in the comic, Soldier Boy and Homelander are not father son, but I think they both I think they did hook up with Stormfront or Liberty, so they did keep that element, but thankfully that would it didn't go as weird as it could have gone, but
It was, like,
yeah,
they managed to brush that off, and yet
yeah,
the episode opens with him literally smelling his father on firecracker. And
Yeah.
it seems like he's more annoyed about the quote unquote prepping that
Mhm.
occurred in her and his father than
Yeah.
he was about the actual screwing. So
Yeah.
so I
Well,
think
which
that's
is
where
well, it's almost like, yeah, I don't kn yeah, 'cause, I mean, especially given that Homelander flat out said, "I'm not sexually attracted to Firecracker." But I guess there
yeah,
is the mother I guess the
exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the Oedipus,
It's
yeah,
that whole mother role, which
yeah,
is ironic. Yeah, but
yeah,
Eh,
which is
these nuggets, like, it's annoying when these writers who are brilliant writers, they do drop these nuggets about just how twisted his psychology is and his
mm,
perspective is, and sometimes I wish they would lean more into those because and I said this last week as well, Homelander, to an extent, especially this season, I'm just like, "Okay, we've seen this before. We've seen him take" like, to literally have him take a bath, bathe in milk. Like, I just I wish they would drive more into some of these smaller moments where his whole psychology, if you explore it, is really fascinating, but I feel like sometimes we just get the shtick, and I think that to your point about the tropes that occurred, I felt a lot about that in this episode predominantly,
mm,
where there are still these nuggets and there's still some entertainment. I will admit, I knew right away that I wasn't a fan of this episode when about halfway, if not three quarters, I was like, I have been totally on my phone, just
yeah,
listening
yeah.
to the
Well,
episode
yeah.
and not really watching it.
Totally get that, totally get that. I think the other thing too was, I guess, the whole Fort Harmony of it all, and, well, then now there were again, even, like, to your point, there were some good nuggets in this episode, like, for example, whenever they were walking through and they joked The Last of Us, "No, that's just a Walking Dead with mushrooms." I mean, so there were, like,
Yeah.
great yeah, very meta, but that one out there but I was sitting there thinking, I was thinking the exact same thing, but the other but the I guess what annoyed me about it all was the Fort Harmony of it all was just basically a way for them to launch sort of backdoor pilot the upcoming Soldier Boy story because I think if I recall the prequel series that Soldier Boy is going to be leading, I think it does center around some of the things that happened there at Fort Harmony. And of course, they keep dropping the, bomb site as far as one of the characters that's going to be showing up in the show as well. So that was what really was like, okay, I see what they're doing here as
So
far as this episode.
for me, the Fort Harmony stuff annoyed me because of it seems like a retread of shows from episodes of shows that we've watched in the past. It's like, okay, so how do we get these characters who are against each other to turn on each other, but also for it to be more verbal commentary on their true natures, like how do we get our characters to have a truth serum episode?
Yeah,
Where
yeah, yeah.
they
That's exactly what.
yeah, yeah, that's what it was. And so what you get as a viewer and what is annoying is you get this dialogue that it's important and they're saying stuff, but it just feels like exposition. It feels more like dialogue dumping
Yeah,
and for the characters to be allowed to say exactly what's on their mind so you don't have to read into anything that is happening. And you're just like, well, that's the whole fun point of the like that's the fun.
yeah,
I'd rather have a bunch of smaller moments than a let me tell you exactly what I've thought about this character for the past 9 months and all of my animosity. I'd rather be able to take a quiet moment and read into those complexities that is occurring. I mean, we are talking about something, we've talked about the same thing for the past three episodes with this. The boys are now a collective of both humans and supes. Therefore, the virus that they are wanting to use is a danger to all supes. Are they okay with that sacrifice? Yes or no. They're after V1 to try to protect. there's a lot of animosity, we get it.
Yeah,
However, I don't think the execution of this, it didn't feel refreshing, it felt like a retread, it felt
yeah,
too much like a dump of dialogue, and honestly, the best moments from those was whenever Frenchie and Kamiko were doing sign language.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, it was just we it was for me, it was familiar ground, and we yeah, it's the same yeah, and, like, even with Butcher and Mother's Milk, I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, we got all the verbal diarrhea out, and we are back to where they are, where basically
Yeah, it doesn't feel like any ground was
yeah,
gained. I mean,
yeah,
to your point about Starlight and that whole thing, why that and I was gonna call this out last week, but we were too high on talking about all the good stuff. So, I didn't say how that opening, I think of episode 3, reminded me so much of X-Men. X2 specifically,
yeah,
because it was like, people were invading a big mansion trying to find a super powered person, and then they get killed. It's a very similar sequence that happens in X2. Well, immediately, as soon as she shows up, I'm like, this is the Iceman scene from X2. I mean, it's the whole sequence of where he goes home and then his brother rats on him to the police, and they get into that whole thing. So you knew it was coming. It's just there wasn't anything surprising about any of these characters in terms of what they did in this episode, and to what you were getting at just before I went into my whole spiel about X-Men is that like we started this episode, and then we've ended exactly where we've started.
yeah,
I mean, the only difference really with Homelander is that now there's a full-fledged campaign for him to replace Jesus. To be the like,
yeah.
but that isn't really in terms of the final few episodes and where we left things off in the previous week where we thought we were gonna go, and I don't know, I do agree with you in your overall opinion, like, this honestly of the season is the first misstep where I'm like,
Yeah,
"Okay."
yeah, yeah, because even, like, like, even the subplot with Deep and Black Noir, I mean, we I just feel like at this point, they're just there. I mean
Exactly, that's my problem with those 2 characters,
yeah,
they're just
yeah,
inserted, and you're like, "Okay, so we're gonna spend any time with them?
yeah,
Are we gonna invest into their dynamic
yeah,
at all? I
yeah.
don't think there's time to do that in the final hour,
No,
so
no, yeah, and even within the universe, they're like wink, wink, with Worm, and they were trying to like plan the marketing for Homelander via Jesus, and and he throws out the the lamplighter finale, and having to like juggle all these characters. It's like, all right, all right, writers' room, all right, Eric, we get we're all in on the joke here now. So
yeah,
please so come up with something fresh because, yeah, the we get the meta references and stuff, and there was like and then, and because, the one thing I did like about for going back to Starlight was, yes, it was familiar, like you said, completely agree. But they did, but where the boys always excels is again, the commentary. And whenever her dad really shared why he went away,
yeah,
and it was very real, and it did tie in thematically with the bigger point of
what
Homelander,
Homeland
yeah, the Homelander with the God stuff. So I mean, that to me, that was those that if they had just really mined that piece of this episode more, I would have felt like it would have really advanced the ball more instead of just falling into TV tropes and then winking at us about where we're all in on the joke.
Right, right, or where it's kinda like, you're pulling from you're pulling from familiar
Mhm.
like, the beauty of this show thus far has been the satire of it all,
Yeah.
and so that's played out, so now you go back to the comic genre in general and you retread sequences and themes from there, it's kind of like, okay, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like in that moment when he explains, yeah, I was totally on board. And then you started to believe that you were appointed by God. Like
Yeah.
so and that so it definitely the beauty of that is because Annie has already been feeling that even though she's not a part of the boys anymore or a part of the seven anymore, she is still a soup
Yeah.
and she is still a part therefore she is still a part of something or a symbol of something that she has learned to despise. Like there's a self-hatred
Yeah.
occurring and that it has turned her into the very thing she despises the most, which is Homeland and the
Mhm.
ruse of it all. So I agree with you. Like between that, some of the points I made earlier, like there are a few really quiet moments and subtle things that just are masked with a lot of noise
Yeah.
that and I'm sure hopefully this is like the low of the season and we get back on track next week.